Welcome to the very first segment of The Life of Books on WLVS Online Radio. Yes. We are excited and anticipating such a great moment right here for the next 2 hours. The Life of Books crew will be before you sharing our very first book of 2018, Don't Settle for Safe by Sarah Jakes Roberts. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for those listening online on listenvision.com. Thank you for those tuning in via Lady Nakia Wright's Periscope. Thank you for those tuning in to Lady Nakia Wright's Facebook and A Woman's Voice viewers on our A Woman's Voice channels. We thank you so very much. 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday is a sacrifice. And we thank you for your sacrifice of joining us on today. I promise you it will be worth your while. I have with me some of the greatest women that ever walked the face of this planet. Let's start and do our formal introductions. I'll start with myself. Dr. Nakia Wright. I'm a founder of A Woman's Voice. The Life of Books is a leg of A Woman's Voice. The Life of Books is an online radio broadcast, online book club radio broadcast, and it's our heart's desire that we bring back the power of the pages. In a society, in a world, in a generation where the internet is running our lives, we want to remind you that the power of turning a page. Reading is a gateway to your mind, and we want to come back and conquer your mind through a book. I just believe that there's so much life, there's balance when you read a book. It brings peace to a chaotic world if you choose the right book to read. And it's a mental vacation from our day-to-day lives. So we are here to remind people, not introduce, books aren't anything new, but just to remind you of the power of opening a book. So without further ado, we'll start with Lady Bynum. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Good morning. No, maybe not. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Charmonique Bynum, and I am a part of the Life of Books crew.
Yes.
I'm Marcy Thompson.
Do you have a mic right here?
I'm Diane Smith. Good morning, everyone.
Hi, I'm Tashia Hodge.
Good morning, I'm Shalonda Williams.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tamika Henry.
Yes, and behind the camera, we have the dynamic Hadassah. Hadassah, come around in front of the camera just one moment and take your bow. Woo-woo! Hattie Mae. And we have the all things guru, Laura Scott. Laura. Come on, take your bow, Laura Scott. Yes. They make us look good. Thank you all, ladies, for joining us. Thank you again for those viewing in. We would like to give our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ all the power, all the glory, and all the honor for this moment. Without him, none of this would be possible. I would like to also give a shout out to the greatest man that ever lived. The one that gave me his name, Donald Wright. He is our pastor. He is our visionary. And without Dr. Wright, none of this would be possible. So, sir, we thank you for being such a strong trailblazer in the earth and setting a path for us to follow. We honor you today, sir. Again, to our WLVS listeners, thank you for joining in. We are excited. We are grateful, and we are ready. Before we begin our book club, I want to just make a few announcements. The first one being, as I previously stated, A Life of Books is a leg of a woman's voice. A woman's voice is we founded it, we're going into our third year of our conference. We do have a conference coming up on Saturday, April the 14th. This year, we're focusing on the entire family dynamic. When A Woman's Voice was first founded, we went in asking the question, how can we help people? How can we empower women? We all have a story. We were all designed to be an answer. How can we get our voices out? We know what trouble looks like. We know what hard times look like. We know what undirected wonderful days look like. How can we assist in making sure that the women in the earth are the best that they can be? We do not confess to have all the answers, but we do confess that we've been through some really traumatic experiences. We've been through some really great experiences. How can we get the best of who we are into someone else? And that's how A Woman's Voice was birthed. We vowed that throughout the process, we would always pay attention to the need in the earth. And in this season of the life, we thought the need of the earth would be to minister to the entire family, because you can go in and empower the wife or empower the sister or empower the mother. But when you come back home, there's still the husband that needs to be ministered to. There's still the children that need to be ministered to. And because we are a multifaceted dynamic, why don't we take all the resources that we have and put them into one major conference? So I am grateful that this year, I am looking forward. We went out and sought out the most powerful speakers to speak life into each and every one of us. Registration is now open. Early bird registration is just $35. Please register. Mark your calendars. A Woman's Voice Family Conference is here, and it is guaranteed to be life-changing. Amen. Excited about it. Well, ladies, without further ado, we are going to begin what we came here to do. Our book, Don't Settle for Safe, we tagged Sarah in all of our posts. We tried to get her to join us on today. However, her schedule did not allow her. It is my hope and my desire that if she does not view the seeds that are planted here today, that her spirit does, because this was a great read. And we're going to be speaking highly of the words that she put in paper. Her transparency deserves to be honored and deserves to be spoken of, because not everyone is bold enough to go where she went. So for her boldness, it is definitely to be honored. We typically begin our Life of Books segment with each and every one of us sharing with you our overall view of the book. So I'm going to start with Tamika, and start with sharing with us what you thought the book meant to you.
I will share. First of all, I absolutely love the book title. Don't Settle for Safe immediately rang a bell for me. But then when I started to look through the table of contents, I recognized that the book was a spectrum of life, that the chapters were not separate. It was more of a continuum. So I could see my life through this book on a spectrum, and I could understand how I had cycled through life using the different chapters of the book from beginning to end. It was just a passageway. She paved a pathway for me to get to a place of freedom over and over and over again. A place of freedom as a woman, a place of freedom as in my career. So she just outlined the steps that are healthy to take to get out of the safety zone and move into a place of thriving and flourishing. Don't settle for safe.
That's very good, Tamika. I forgot to mention, if you are viewing us on Periscope and Facebook Live, if for some reason you have a connection problem, you can also view us online. The website is right behind me at listenvision.com. So if Periscope or Facebook gets stuck and you want to continue viewing, you can go to Mothers of Jabak, my church family. I love y'all so very much. We have the greatest church on the planet. Mothers, if Periscope or Facebook gets stuck, go to listenvision.com, and that's the website address right there. My mom and dad are viewing in today too. Hey, mommy and dad. Hey. All right, no more shout outs. Shalonda.
For me, the book was very enlightening. I like how she tells stories and then she comes after she tells the story to give you the point, like what she wants you to drive home in and what she wants you to take away from the story. I like how she highlights or she brings to light your blind self, the things about you that you don't even know or you don't even see. And you're reading the pages and it's like, wow, I do that, you know? Like I do have patterns that I haven't recognized and now I need to go back and correct those things and fix those things. And I also like her one-liners. She is a queen of the one-liners and you'll be like, that was only 5 words, but my God, it knocks you right off your seat. So for me, it was very enlightening. It was very fulfilling. It was a great read.
I really appreciated the book. The book for me was very relatable. Some of the things that she said, like as Nakia said, they were transparent moments, and they let you know. The book let you know that yes, everybody have experiences that may be traumatic, and it just strengthened you in your struggle. But it also let you know, don't live there, don't get stuck there. We all experience things that shake us to our core, that can possibly have us stuck. But it lets us know to be unstoppable and not to stay in the pain.
That's very good, ladies. As I'm going to repeat what I previously said, she went there. To go where she went was very intentional. To get to the core of who you are, you have to intentionally dissect your painful moments in your life, because those painful moments are the foundation of who you are if you do not address them. And I appreciate the steps that she took to address the painful moments of her life. And I appreciate seeing the dynamics of her recovery and how, because she addressed them, how much freedom and release she now walks in. And a lot of us want to do it, but we don't know how to do it. And I feel like she provided a roadmap or a blueprint for us to figure out, this is the things that I'm dealing with. I don't know how to go about addressing them. And if I do address them and the wound is open, how do I heal as a result of it? And this book is a blueprint to how to address, how to heal, how to recover, and how to walk in it.
I absolutely loved the book. I gifted it about 6 times. I believe.
Am I a recipient of your gifting?
Yes. She is my writing hero. I love her vulnerability. I think so many times we start out with the pursuit and desire to help others, but we do so hiding behind a wall.
That's good.
And her level of transparency and the voice in which she uses in portraying many truths, I admired, and it attracted me to want to be vulnerable in my receiving of what she was saying. When I read it from the eyes of letters to my younger self, because there were so many things that she shared that I could identify with and pinpoint in my own journey of becoming that was very real, very raw. And there were moments that when you feel teary-eyed moments because you're like, that registers in a place with me. I pushed through in courage because she exemplified it in her words. So I would highly recommend the book to everyone. Absolutely.
So I agree with everything that has been said so far. The book was very refreshing in a way that there are times we feel things, but we don't know how to articulate them. And she basically gave us a common language to use to pinpoint certain areas, certain stages of growth, development, recovery. The book is laced with accountability, encouragement, and the power of restoration in a tangible way. So, as everyone has said, it's a blueprint, it's a roadmap, it's all those things, and I really appreciated the writing.
So for me, the book had a different perspective on life for me. It was more about the courage to use your voice, because we all know who her father is. The courage that it takes to be this vulnerable, this real, this open about who you were, the things that you thought, the things that you've done, and then turn around and say how to survive. Like, that takes courage on a different level, because now you're open to everybody's opinion about who you were, who you've been, and then they can still. The fact of the matter is, most people, when they hear your story, they tend to judge you presently on who you were.
Yes.
And so the courage that she took to say who she was a great thing for me. So I really enjoyed the book.
That's good. And I'm just not going to make any points because Charmy just took all of my points throughout the whole book and summed it up just now. That's so good. Again, if you're just joining us, I'd like to welcome you to the very first radio show of the Life of Books. Today we are discussing the book Don't Settle for Safe by Sarah Jakes Roberts. Yes, Sarah Jakes Roberts. So, Shalonda, come on, let's talk about your first point that stood out in the book.
Good morning. My first point is coming from the introduction.
Yes, introduction.
Yes, I want to go back to the introduction, but her forward was great. I'll just
Let me
say
tell
this
you
one line
something.
about the forward,
It
though.
is.
She says, "You were created for deep waters and holy fire." That took me out
Yes,
of there.
holy fire.
Come on, sing, Lady Right. You got a song in your heart this morning for the people. Okay.
At 10 a.m. 29:12.
Yes,
Richie Road.
Lord.
Amen. So on the first page of the introduction, she says, "A life of constant comfort and stability without any fears or insecurity simply does not exist for me anymore." And if you flip the page over, next page, she says, "Your power to overcome is your willingness not to just anticipate but embrace the unpredictability of life. Being afraid of the unknown does not keep it at bay." And for me, I took away that in life, you have to make sure that you plan. You know what I mean? And you face the reality of, this is my reality. I cannot ignore my truth. And me ignoring my truth does not make it false. It's still my reality. It helps me grow up and face what I've chosen. Because sometimes we like to think that, or blame other people for our choices, but you have to take ownership. This is what I chose. And now I'm dealing with the consequences of those choices. So now that I know this, I have to take ownership of all of it and embrace that part of my life. So that would be my first point.
That's very good. Excellent. I don't know if you ladies know this. Some of you we've introduced to some and we're presenting to others. The Life of Books, we're just girls sitting at home in front of our fireplaces discussing this book and allowing you to listen. So we're going to have moments, we may have moments of tears, may have moments of laughter, we have moments where we agree and may have moments where we disagree, but we just welcome you into our safe place. Dee, what do you have? You have something in the introduction, because the introduction was extremely powerful. Does anyone else have a point that they wanted to bring out in the introduction or the forward?
Well, in the introduction, the last page of the introduction, it says, "The vibrancy of your life is contingent on your ability to accept situations that isolated you and to learn and be empowered by your unique imprint." And it just makes me think all things a woman's voice, your voice matter because you matter. And the vibrancy depends on your ability to bounce back.
Yes,
And we're living that story.
that's
How
good.
impactful our bounce back has been and will continue to be. So
Yes.
that spoke loudly to me.
Yes, I know. On the same page, she says, "If voices of insecurity, doubt, and fear are not confronted, they will dictate your life. You cannot silence these words or ignore them. Instead, make them your audience as you dare to defy the limitations of your past." And I love this. I'm a firm believer that you have to talk to the thing that's talking to you. You combat the words of fear with words of strength. So good.
I have one. So
Yes, Mika.
at the top of the page, and I mean it just screamed really loudly. It's a very simple statement. In those moments, you get to choose
Yes.
between staying on the comfort of land or daring to be like the deep, vast ocean that creates both fascination and fear.
Yes.
And here's the deal. So the power for me is in you get to choose.
It's a
Everyone
choice.
has the chance to choose. There's no partiality given to anybody, and those who choose to seek God will find him, and in him will be every answer that we may ever need. But then it goes on to say, you get to choose between the comfort of land
Yes.
or daring to be like the deep, vast ocean. And on Sunday and Wednesday, Bishop was talking about Jesus sitting in the boat in Mark 4, teaching the crowd on land,
Yes.
and how the water represented spirit. And he taught us that the water amplified his voice so that all could hear him.
Yes.
And it was their choice. You get to choose whether or
So
not
good.
you're going to leave the comfort of land or venture out into the deep of the ocean. And I
That's
mean,
good.
it just vibrated within me. It's like, Lord, I choose you over and over and over
That's
again.
good.
Yes,
If you want
my-
to invite Tamika Henry for a speaking engagement, just go to our Facebook page. Yes. That's good. I love it. It's a choice. And that's the thing that most of us forget, that the difference between success and failure is simply a choice. Charmy?
So, kind of tying in the foreword and the introduction, she says something on the very first page of the foreword. She says, "The poignant words of the prophet Isaiah
Yes.
do not promise us a way around, but a way through."
Yes,
And
Lord.
then on the second page of the introduction, she says, "Being afraid of the unknown does not keep it at bay."
Yes.
So the thing about a lot of people, I'll say for me, is that I'm always looking for an escape route. Like in the sense of to get around whatever it is that's plaguing me, bothering me, or the things that I don't typically want to address at that time, instead of finding and navigating through it. So God does not allow us the opportunity to escape what we're going through. He takes us through it. And so that's something that, like, as simple as it may be, like, she made me think of that, because when you say being afraid of the unknown does not keep it at bay, if I escape it, that does not do anything but prolong the fact that I'm going to have to address it anyway.
Yes.
So
That's so good. My strength in the walk of I don't understand, but I trust. My strength is the process is necessary. This is necessary to build who I am. This is necessary to take me to greatness. And if I stop here and choose another way, I'm going to have to come back to this. And I refuse to repeat this again. And look, this may be the easy time. The second time around may not be as easy. I refuse to go through this twice. Marcy.
Okay. So my next point is on page 3. It's in the first chapter.
Her cursive words are the most impactful to me. When for those of you who have the book, whenever you see the print of her writings change, be prepared to be slayed.
Yes.
Is that one of your points?
No.
Oh, okay. No, I was gonna, if you wanted to read that. Okay. So one point, it jumped out. It was a great reminder. Nothing has happened to you that God can't use to restore you. The first step in that restoration is recognizing the power you've always had to pull yourself out and constantly push towards the light at the end of the tunnel. And I just thought that was so great. That is great reassurance from God. He can restore us from anything.
Yes.
You all spoke about it. It's about choice. So that's all I had on that page.
I mean, every page is underlined and highlighted for something. But I'll highlight on page 8. She says, becoming who you want to be may demand that you get rid of old ideas about what success looks like. For me, this meant getting rid of the white picket fence illusion.
Yes.
And our life journey has a way of shattering our naivety and our definitions that we have learned about what success look like that have been imposed by other people's realities. And when you begin to walk out your own truths, you really have to begin to be okay with getting a definition that does not look like anyone else's idea of success or anyone else's idea of what promise looks like. And she continues to drive out the strength and courage that's necessary as it pertains to the vulnerability that will be required to continue on a journey of really becoming who you were intended to be. and I love it.
The overall theme of the book, to me, a lot of it has to do with memory. And one thing that I just keep saying to myself over and over again is don't ever allow memory to enslave you. And she addresses that so often. On page 6, at the bottom of the page, she says something that is not anything new that we've not ever heard, but just to see it on paper yet again resonated in me. The gift of growing requires letting go. We have to let go or we'll experience discomfort and even pain. And I always say holding on to what has exceeded its time limit in your life becomes detrimental to your health. Sometimes we hold on to things because it's our comfort zone. And they may offer us absolutely nothing towards greatness, but they give us that momentarily feeling of comfort. And when life is chaotic, we look for comfort zones. But let me tell you something. Comfortable is one of the things that eats away at your promise.
May I? So you mentioned the point on growing, and that is significant because I think the overall concept that I heard the book through, or lens, was growth. And so just on the previous page, on page 5, she starts with, for a positive change to take place within your soul, no area can be off limits for examination. If you skip down to the last of the paragraph, it said, it won't be easy, but it will be worth it. You are worth it. Growth is produced through sacrifice. It requires that you release the comfort of your last phase and learn the distinctions of the new one. And the hashtag, if you will, for me is keep growing.
Okay, hashtag. Yes, I love it. Hashtag keep growing. If you're just joining in, we are doing a book review of Don't Settle for Safe by Sarah Jakes Roberts. If you have not gotten this book, it is a necessary for your library.
Yeah.
Tashia?
Right. My first point is on page 11.
Does anyone have anything before page 11 before we creep on up the book? Shalonda, did you have something? Okay.
Go ahead. Well, there's a portion in here that addressed our male children.
Where are you?
It's on page 8.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, from boyhood, men pride themselves on their ability to be rough and tough. When water begins to form in their eyes, we tell them to suck it up and that boys don't cry. Their youthful charm and boyish features earn them nicknames meant to be endearing, such as Heartbreaker or Ladies' Man. When we create a culture that congratulates men on their ability to hide their emotions, juggle multiple relationships, and resist vulnerability, we run the risk of producing men who internalize their fears and who break hearts rather than protect them.
That's so good.
And there was a book that the book club did. It was a bestseller. It was called Tonight We Wrestle.
Yes, by the one and only Bishop Donald Wright.
Yes.
Yes. Do you not cheering loud enough? That was my boo.
But in the book, he discusses how necessary it is to seal the softness of our young boys in the Holy Spirit so that they can safely grow and develop and stay attached to their emotions in a healthy way.
If you would like to order the book Tonight We Wrestle, please put a note in the comment section and we'll make sure that you get it. That was very good. When I read that part, all I can say at that moment is, Sarah, what? Because that is one of the things that has plagued men, and that's their foundation. And because most men are grown now and their foundation is built, it's like you can't change the core of who they are. So many women have to learn to live with this, what was created at this point in their lives. Wow. Tashia. Now, Mika, hold yourself, because Tashia gonna make a point. Okay.
Well, since we were still on 9, did you read the bottom line of Page 9. The bottom line is you'll never know who you can become if
Yes.
you create a life that requires you to pretend you've already comfortable with who you are.
That's so good.
You highlighted that.
Can I just share
Jump
a
in,
point
sure.
earlier in that page? When I spoke about accountability, so just up a few lines, it says, unexpected events often delay or detour our desired accomplishments.
Yeah.
And then jump down, life requires an uncanny resolve to maintain peace in the middle of raging storms.
Yes.
In the side, I said, let me just add, even the storms that we create.
That's true.
You know, you need uncanny resolve, and I think that's a strategy.
That's a
You
strategy.
Build up your resolve. If you're gonna make it, you have to be willing to do that. So I just wanted to add that point.
So good. Back to page 11. The point that I wanted to make, this was my favorite chapter, by the way. No more excuses.
Yes.
Excuses are comfort zones. Life is never short on excuses. And I say we justify staying stuck. With only a little bit of effort, we can come up with justifications that ultimately leave us bitter, broken, and numb.
So good.
If we go down, so one of the quote in it was, maybe you've convinced yourself that staying the same meant you'll never hurt again. And if you go all the way down, so we want to read the entire chapter. Our list of our nevers is false protection against another letdown. The walls of our fears erect are as unstable as the excuses that created them. Placing our hearts in a fortress will not keep pain at a distance. Pain touches, and pain will also teach. I just highlighted that, but I skipped all around that.
That's a
Pain
word right
touches,
there.
and pain will also teach. So that was one of my points. Was playing it safe is one of the defense mechanisms that we have created within ourselves out of disappointment, hurt, pain, heartbreak, rejection, whatever the case may be. But the no more excuses really spoke out to me, that she just spoke so loudly about it's you can justify staying stuck, but you don't have to stay stuck.
That's good. D, piggyback off of that. What you got?
When I put on page 12, name your pain. Page 12, I highlighted name your pain. So often people want to rush you through your pain because they don't know how to identify or how to assist in healing what you're feeling. And sometimes you're busy trying to find the vocabulary to describe how you feel, that they want you to hurry up so that they're not feeling the discomfort that they're not able to address. So I really appreciated this because one of the statements she says is, no matter how many times you say I'm okay, if you haven't accepted and admitted that you've been hurt, you're not healing, you're reverting. Yes. And we are masters of portraying wellness. We've been taught how to mask our pain, and we only let it out in glimpses for the few that we feel safe with. And even in the ones that we feel safe with, we only give them drops of how we really feel, because we often think if we're gonna be real, we often think, can they handle the totality of how I really feel? We will share the surface of what we're feeling, but we will not share the depths of what makes us feel so broken. So I loved how she said name it, because when you name it, you can identify when something you're experiencing is registering in that place. And you no longer project or hold someone accountable to what you're not able to express, because you now know what is causing the feeling.
That's very good. Now, let me ask you something. For people who don't know how to find a safe place to identify where they are, what advice would you give someone who is going through something that they can't say out loud, but they have to get it out? What advice would you give to them?
Well, being an introvert, my two mechanisms for dealing with anything that's bothered me, writing, journaling, prayer. I find so often we look externally for help and our answer is within. Yes. And we get disappointed because we keep extending outward looking for help, and it accelerates or magnifies the pain, because they further disappoint us when they do not have the response that we're looking for. So I find writing is very therapeutic for me. A lot of times I always say, if you want to know what I'm thinking, tell me to write.
Yes.
If you want to know what I'm thinking, tell me to pray. Because I find that until you get in touch with the parts of you that make you the most uncomfortable, you will continue to project pain on others.
That's good.
That's excellent. That's a great segue into page 13. Keep the promises you make to yourself. I love the song, Waymaker, Promise Keeper, Miracle Worker. And I just believe that in my life and in my walk, as he is, so are we. I just believe that we sometimes sell our short of the power that we possess. And you can't ever be fully to anyone else until you are true to who you are. She says at the bottom of the page, when did you learn to give up on yourself? How powerful is that? I just believe that it's like a coping mechanism that we just believe that putting ourselves on the back burner, addressing everyone else's needs and not addressing ours has become our safe haven. And sometimes when we address us, we address the external part of who we are and we don't address the internal part of who we are. Yeah. And to me, that leads to, when I look at Tamika, I will look at her and I may judge her off of the things that she do, but because I have a perceived perception of me, I'm only judging you off of my own perception. Yeah. And I judge you off of what you do, but I judge myself off of what I meant to do. And Bishop taught us that so often. And until we learn to address ourselves and believe in ourselves, we hold someone else accountable for the things we won't address.
Yeah, we do.
And I just believe that this book is great. I believe that this book is an answer. And I also believe, and it's not a cheap plug because I pay for this radio time. I believe that where we worship at 2912 Ritchie Road in Forestville, Maryland, is a necessary answer in the earth. God gave us a great vessel to give us a blueprint on how to survive, how to keep our promises to us, and how to be to other people what we wish somebody would have been to us.
What she just said about surviving. You want to go, Marcy? Okay. When you said about how we survive on page 12, she talks about survival. Yeah. She says survival empowers, it does not confine. The true testimony of survival is not what you survive. It is how you were able to truly live again. Yes. And I think that's the major takeaway, to piggyback on what Lady Wright was saying, is survival is not just what it was, but am I breathing again? Do I have my life back? Do I have my bounce back? Am I walking with purpose? You know what I mean? Am I allowing it to take me out, or am I learning those lessons and taking it and applying it to my next steps forward? So survival, that part about survival took me out of here. Are we living truly again? You know what I mean? And you really have to ask yourself, am I living or am I just really existing? Because I heard a young lady say, I will not die at 32 and you bury me at 84. Lies you tell. You know what I mean? And so we have to find the breath of life, okay? And that's only found in God, because he breathes life, you know? So I'll stop right there because I'm getting a little bit excited. Tasha said,
when she said,
come on, where we at?
At the bottom about the critical thought, something in you knows you have more left than you've lost.
Yes. That part, yeah. She says, in spite of your most critical thoughts, something in you knows you have more left than you lost.
Yeah. Good. I am a good comeback story. Don't sell me cheap now. I'm a good comeback story, Marcy.
Oh, I was just gonna. So two things. At the top of page 13, it said, "So you've received the gift of survival."
Yes.
Yes.
I rewarded myself, honey.
I never even considered survival as a gift.
I rewarded myself.
Those words changed my perspective on survival.
Yes.
And then down at the bottom where Lady Wright was talking about, when did you learn to give up on yourself? So in the margin, I wrote, where did you learn that? And it took me back to in the garden where God ask Adam, who told you you were naked?
Yes.
Where did you get that from?
Yeah.
That's so
And
good.
I just said so much of our behavior is modeled. It's things that we've seen others do, parents, and she goes into that. And, ideally, we're modeling we're modeling the coping skills that we've attained over whatever span of period or things that we've seen people recover from. And so that's one reason why I'm so grateful, because we're modeling the way in recovery.
Yes.
As a woman's voice. And because I've seen recovery done so poorly that I don't even know if you can call it recovery. And so I'm just so grateful for that. But I was just like, who taught you that? Where did you get that from? And so that spoke loudly. That was good.
And like life, there's phases to recovery. And some people stay in the first phase of recovery and don't push to out of recovery.
The maturation of recovery.
Yes, that's it. There's levels to this recovery.
Level to it. And she wait, hold on. She also said on page 12, she says that you still choose to live with the cast on. She said, what's the good use of being healed and you still wearing the cast? She was referring to like a broken bone. How long are you gonna wear the cast? You're healed.
Yes. That's just like when you go to the altar on Sunday and you want a real good cry. And God has delivered you from something psychologically. But every time you go to the altar, if the preacher will preach on the thing that you remembered, you've been delivered from that. And it's like every time a preacher touches on something that reminds you of your pain, you go back into it. But listen, let me tell you something. You have to stop reverting to a painful place after you've come out. You have to.
That's a word, lady.
You have to.
Where's our bell?
we need.
Ding, 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 ding.
We're gonna do that next time.
I'm gonna write you an IOU.
Yes. Shami, we haven't heard from you in a minute. What you got over there?
Did you go over 13?
No, I'm on page 14.
All right, I'll go back to 13. 13 was really good.
It was a good page.
No, go ahead. I'll go after you. Oh, I just wanted to point out. Okay, well, give me a minute. Go ahead, give you time to time to get your thought together. Of course, I told you that 13 was my favorite. No More Excuses was my favorite one. But when she said, the moment you begin to reestablish your faith in your life, fear would try to rear its ugly head. And in the margin, I said, you need faith because the Bible says it's impossible to please God without it. So that was my point.
Yes, Tasha.
Contaminated with a toxic anxiety of failure. Like somebody said that she was a one-liner or something. So you could take away so many good points that she made in this book. It was really,
Go
really
ahead and
good.
read the next line.
Okay.
That's good, Tasha.
When your mind becomes cluttered with the possibilities of what if, there is no room for faith.
Yes.
Living life prepared for the worst possible outcome is like living in a cage.
It's not freedom.
It's not freedom.
It's so good.
Okay, wait a minute. Over time, you will recognize the difference between guarding your heart and restricting it.
That's good.
You will learn to stop talking yourself out of the good things that God has promised to all who live according to his purpose. And I put in, you just have to know the difference when you're guarding it and when you're just being restricted and not letting anyone in. This was my chapter. Yes. So free. So yeah, free from emotional prison. You, my survivor friend, will not settle for a life dictated by insecurities or previous experiences. At this very moment, you are changing the trajectory of your life.
Yes.
You have access to power that is capable of working within you to free you from any mental and emotional bondage that you have conceived that has convinced you a better life is not within grasp. And my point was, make peace with your past.
That's it.
Move on, please.
That's it. There's so many. I think the earth is absent of matriarchs because so many matriarchs were wounded, bruised, and hurt and stayed there. There are more bitter women in churches now. I'm sorry, I love churches. I love everybody in them. But there's so many bitter, wounded people in church now that choose to live in their wounds. When it's a choice. You have to accept the fact that life happened. It hurt like hell, but it's not going to stop me from living the best days of my life.
She talks quite a bit in the book about Naomi and Ruth. And I think where so many of us miss the mark is we stop offering ourselves. We were created to be offered. And the strength of your recovery is learning the power in continuing to offer yourself. Even in your most brokenness, that has been my posture of victory, offering myself. I have learned that's my truth. That I've learned that I give energy to my pain and what I feel is lost when I take a parking lot position in giving the strength of who I am. And I have learned that my healing comes in offering the whole totality of who I am, the parts that I'm still figuring out, the broken parts, the parts that I adore. And the truth be told, the part of me that's broken become healed when I resonate with a part in you that I can identify, because now I'm connecting with you and I'm able to see a part of myself in you. And when you refuse to offer, you get no connection. And when you continue to connect, that's the life of who you are.
So good. I'm totally opposite. So I'm trying to figure out, if I have a faulty mindset, why do I want to offer? So when do you master yourself or within and before you can be an offering?
That's good.
I believe it's a question of self-worth. Because when you really believe that I was created in the image of a God who makes no junk, that my DNA is great, that you really understand that if we say that our journey is dictated by him and he knows the way and it's his plan for us to prosper, we know even in our broken moments, there's a purpose behind it. There's something bigger that I'm unable to see in this dark place. And so I've learned that in your dark places, you have to reach higher. And a lot of times we don't want to reach higher because we want to be comforted and we want to be appeased. And I don't know about you, but some of my dialogues with God would be like, how can this be fair? How can wanting to do good cause so much pain?
Come on,
Sometimes.
When your faithfulness feel like a curse.
Yes. This is good. And this is what you have to say to yourself over and over again. I am living to be an answer. And if I keep what I'm going through quiet, I can never be somebody's answers. Sometimes my presence is not enough. My words and my story have to be heard.
That's very good.
Sharmi, what you got?
The dean just took me out.
Yes, God, honey. Let me just tell you something. How can this be fair? Yes, he wrote that book too. Let me tell y'all something. Let me tell y'all something. Put the comment section. Put your name and your address in the comment section. I'll gift you that book today. How can this be fair? When you giving all you have and it feels like, God, did you forget about me?
My Lord.
So good.
Well,
Wait, insert a praise right there. Just lift your hands and, insert a God, thank you. You know what I mean? For keeping my mind through all of that.
Yes, God. I'm sorry.
Last night he said, let my heart see with my eyes.
Listen.
I don't think I heard nothing else after that.
Listen.
So good.
It's about to happen.
No.
okay. So,
Jesus.
so, page 14. Okay, so I'm just gonna say this real quick. This is not on the page, okay?
Come on, Shami.
I had this conversation with Bishop one day, and he said, I know that the weight of waiting is heavy. And I thought to myself, oh no, are you about to cry? Like, what is happening? Like, just what we're talking about, like, the weight of waiting has a way of making you slow down. But it is the grace of God that allows you to not only speed up like Jonah, but like Bishop said last night, he gives us hinds feet
Yeah.
to make up the difference when we're on the side of falling.
Yeah.
That's good.
I don't know. For those that are viewing us for the very first time, I don't know that if you've heard this story, but a woman's voice was birthed on the road to promise. It's when a woman's voice was birthed at probably the most misunderstanding time of my life, when I know what the Lord said clearly, and it feels like his promise is delayed, not denied, but delayed. And I felt like I was becoming weary in well doing. And I vowed, talking at home with my husband, I don't want to disappoint God on the road to promise. So let me turn the road to promise to purpose so that the road won't be so weary. You just present this road of a woman's voice has literally been us presenting ourselves as an offering, because each one of us have not seen the promise that God has given us. And as it takes stick-to-itiveness to do what we're doing in the times when it's costing us the most.
You talking? Can I just say? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's everything, all of that, and it's about strategy or understanding the Word of God, leaning on the Word of God, because your emotions will take you out, and
Yes,
the
they
Word of
will.
God grounds you.
They will betray
And
you.
something
They will
she
betray
said,
you.
moving on, waiting in purpose. I'm adding to what she said. She said moving on, but I'm going to add waiting in purpose, waiting for promise takes effort, intentionality, and discipline. And so, listen, you command your soul to wait
Yes,
and
you do.
be good while waiting.
Yeah.
And all of those things. And so, it's everything Lady Wright said, and it's everything that we're learning through the Word of God. You have to be grounded, because listen, I tell myself I'm not moving another step all the time, and I can't even say I'm pushing myself forward some days. God is just
Yes.
He is translating me to promise. 'Cause some days I don't have the effort, and so I'm just grateful. Yes, I'm done.
Yes.
But you need discipline.
You were gonna say your point, Shama, but you inserted a preaching point before you made your point.
Write your own. So, her and her husband on page 14, they were having a conversation with their daughter. And the daughter says, I'll try my best.
Yes.
The husband's response left me evaluating my own language. He told her that the word try leaves room for failure where it isn't necessary. Where it's not necessary.
Yes.
Like, and I thought back, how often have I gave myself space, room
Yes.
to mess up for failure, because I put that little, addendum right in there. I'll try.
Yeah.
I'll try, which means my best may not be your best, so you can't expect much of me because you don't know what my best is. But that's not the way that we are to operate. We are supposed to you're supposed to be all in, 100%, all in. And it says how often we relieve ourselves of the discipline required to manifest our goals. Like that was great.
Can I piggyback off of what Sharma just said about like trying? She says it on page 10. She says, but mediocrity is comforting until it becomes debilitating. She said, God does not grade our lives on a curve. He's given each of us a certain measure of faith and power to have an incredible life. So what you choose, life is a choice. You know what I mean? And there's no curve to this. He planned it out. He said, this is the way you must go. And he doesn't have, what is that thing? An alternate plan for your life. This is the plan. Ask Abraham. Abraham went out with Sarah, told the king, that's my sister, did all of that. And then the Bible clearly says he had to come back to where he was in the beginning. There is no way around. You only have to go through it.
Exactly.
Yes. What you got over there, Mika?
Well, in keeping with the point that these two, Sharmi and Shalonda, just made, without try, I looked at the word impossible, right? And just add an apostrophe because God says, I'm possible. I am possible. I am possible. Don't try, do it. Don't make excuse, push forward. So I'm kind of stuck right there.
That's good.
I'm stuck right there.
That's good. D, what you got? Wherever you going. Forward is always good. Wait, before you go on, I love her preludes from one chapter to the next chapter. Oh, that's so great. If you have not gotten this book, please make sure you get this book. It is a dynamic must read, not because of who the writer is, not because she has a world famous father and he's this and he's that, but because of her heart. The purity that she put on paper is necessary for people to read, to continue on the road to promise.
You talked about how she opens up each of the chapter, and I love the fact that not only does she opens up with the dialogue, but she also throughout have snippets of prayers that she wished she would have prayed or that she offers should be prayed during an experience. But
From Please God. That was really good.
yeah, I wrote that down too. She said, please God, if you're still looking over me, help me to retrace the steps that led to my brokenness so that I can discover the lessons you want me to learn from these wounds. It's just powerful. Just absolutely powerful. But I highlighted on page 21 on the bottom, and it says, I'm learning that surviving painful experiences is good, but the danger comes when we don't take the time to actually recover. It's surviving a broken bone and then choosing to live with a perpetual limp rather than undergoing surgery to fix it. Eventually, you can learn to function in such a way that won't exasperate the break, but the rest of your body has to overcompensate to make up for the immobility of that broken bone. Before you know it, you've robbed yourself of the recovery that would restore the full function of your body. Just powerful. I think we're so inclined to wanting to look okay, wanting to be whole, that we just speed through the whole experience and wonder why we keep falling into the same patterns. And if we had just stood still to allow recovery to take its full course, we would not be going through the same things.
Yes.
So, yes, we are talking about, individual and personal recovery, but it made me think of the body of Christ, like how so often we jump into things without being fully recovered, and then your brokenness now means that the rest of us have to pick up the slack to get the will of God done until you're restored. Like it now, of course, that may just have been a personal thought for me, but it just made me think of like the boards, and just how like
It was the tabernacle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
Shelby, I was just thinking that. Yeah, Shelby.
So yeah, it had another spin on it for me.
I hope that Sharmi does not mind me being this transparent. But one day we had this conversation. Sharmi is a prayer warrior. Everybody that knows me know that when you see me, you see her, and vice versa. And there was one point not too long ago, I came to her in all sincerity and I said, Sharmi, I'm getting hit with blows. I said, I need you. And at that time, it's like something shook in her. And she said, okay, I got you. When you are when you're connected with somebody, and life happens, it happens to all of us. I'll piggyback off of that by exposing something that I did. When we're connected and life distracts you, sometimes you take unexpected blows and you don't realize the harm that you may be putting in the person that you're connected to, because whatever's happening to you has caused you to be self-absorbed. And you just have to realize that you are part of a body, and your portion of the body is necessary. For me, I believe that I was taking on too much of the body. This has been a really rough season for me physically. And I just, every day has been a day where physically it's hard to walk. It's hard to get out of bed. It's hard to wear heels. And my husband finally found the right moment to say to me, he said, I waited to say this to you when I thought that you could hear me. He said, your job, your role, your assignment is not to carry my weight. You weren't built to carry my weight, and that's what you're trying to do. Your job is to cover me. And when he said that a few days ago, the next day when I went to pray, I didn't even pray for him, because I didn't know how to pray for him without praying from a posture of trying to carry his weight. So I said, God, you got him today. The next day I went to pray. I said, God, you have to have him today. I had to recalculate my thinking process. And when I got it, and I prayed for my husband and I covered him, I put on a pair of heels and it didn't hurt.
Oh, well, that was my point that Lady D made. Oh, since we're there.
Hadassah, come on over here. Our ladies behind the scene read with us. They are a part of it, and she has a point that she's going to make for us today. Hattie Mae.
Good morning. I highlighted, I think, everything in this book. I don't know which point I want to choose.
There's so many.
Like, even in the introduction, I can't remember if someone said it or not, but in the introduction, she said, if voices of insecurity, doubt, and fear are not.
Yes, we said that. Mm-hmm.
You did? Then I'll find it.
Go back, start from page 21. You have something after page 21?
Wait, did somebody say this? I'm learning that surviving painful experiences is good, but the danger comes when we don't take the time to actually recover.
Yep, that's what we were just talking about. Recovery is necessary. Yes.
She working the camera. Oh, God. Hold on. Okay, I got one. What page is it on? 23. Yes, 23. I don't think anyone says it. So it says, guard your heart. Page 23. At this point in your journey, your heart is probably a garden full of both fruit and weeds that your thoughts, emotions, and experiences have produced. It feels good to see all that beauty and fruit, but I challenge you to look for the weeds and be willing to pull them out by the roots and risk spoiling the beauty and fruitfulness of your heart. There are weeds in your life you are aware of and others that you are still discovering. Those weeds could be blocking you from having meaningful connections and liberty in your life. After you identify and pull out the weeds, you have to implement a plan of defense against them. You must filter your thoughts and actions with knowledge that those weeds produce an unhealthy pattern in your life. And that's similar to what Ms. D was talking about
That's
earlier.
good.
Being able to address those parts of your life and how you can't extend yourself. You haven't really done the surgery within yourself about the things that will lead to patterns that are destructive for you. Just really identifying yourself and learning from those mistakes and not repeating the same thing, and being willing to pull out those weeds in efforts of being used for others, or just being able to extend yourself fully. I'm sure I could have had 100 more things to say.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. That's good. Marcy, what you got?
Okay, so my next point is on page 27, so I don't know if someone has something before that. Okay, so making good decisions is what she talked about. And on page 27, I just highlighted, fear-based decision-making will only produce more fear. It's important to recognize that external successes in life are not necessarily a reflection of a healthy soul. And I just put, wow. And true success cannot be seen with the human eye, but it can be felt through genuine warmth and connection. And many of the indicators we use, and I just jumped down, to determine triumph over difficulty are tangible. So we always look for what we can see, touch, and feel. But our greatest accomplishment comes when we have the ability to master our souls. And I thought that was so good.
That's good. At the bottom of that page, on page 27, I said that what she said is marriage counseling 101. With an open heart and mind, we must be willing to accept that some situations aren't about right or wrong, they're about peace. If only life was as cut and dry as right and wrong. That to me was marriage counseling 101. Does anybody, I really enjoy page 26.
I have something at the top of 26.
Yes, that's
When she says, well, how about you, going back to what everybody was
Yes.
saying about your weeds and understanding them and recognizing them, and I highlighted this point, what are your weeds? What thoughts and behaviors are keeping you from enjoying the full beauty of the heart God has given you? Your willingness to seek them out will transform your heart, producing compassion and creating opportunities to extend grace to others. And that is everything that we've just been talking about, extending grace to others and being an offering to others and recognizing those things that will hinder you from living life to your fullest potential or purpose to its fullest potential. Because a lot of us, we live in the area of immature purpose. We live in the area of immature passion. And it's up to us to recognize that and be able to live up to it to its fullest so that we can have a full life. And it goes back to the statement that Elder D made earlier about you won't have the surgery to fix it, but you'll rather walk with the limp forever, making your body overcompensate that. And one thing, and everybody knows I have a science background, is that your body will remember. You know, you have memory cells, and you have to choose wisely what you allow your body to remember, what you allow yourself to remember, because what happens is when you have that particular mechanism, your body will get used to it. You know what I mean? And once your body gets used to it, it allows for that overcompensation. And memory, it can work to you in both ways. It's good for you and it is bad for you, because there are processes in your body that allows memory cells. So when you come into a contact with an infection or something that's not good for you, your B cells in your body, they are memory cells. You know what I mean? So if I am exposed to this infection, my body, my immune system, responds to it. But the second time I'm exposed to this, my immune system remembers that thing. And the attack that it tried to put on me, my body will respond to it quicker, faster. You know what I mean? Because it's already experienced it and it already knows how this thing has tried to attack me before. And so the thing about the memory cells is that you have to make sure you understand the process of it all, because if you don't have that process, things that shouldn't be able to take you out will take you out. You know what I mean? Things that would take you longer to recover from, it'll take you longer to recover from. But because you can recognize those patterns or the things that we've gone through before, we have to make sure we see those things early on and recognize them so that we don't fall into cycles of hurt, cycles of sin, cycles of things that always are a hindrance to us. So that just is my point about the memory thing and not having your body work so hard for things that you can actually alleviate on your own.
That's good. One thing that I can personally say is during the highest points of my life, memory would make me recall the most painful times of my life. And one day I asked the Lord, I said, why is it that when I am the happiest of my life, my memory will bring up a painful situation? And a long story short, I had to pray a prayer. And the prayer was, God, take the sting out of the memory if you won't take the memory from me. What I found out was the memory was necessary for me to keep what it was that I had. And in order for me to keep it, I had to go through the process of learning what the pain was meant for. And again, there are places in your past you have to revisit. But I am living proof that God will take the sting out of the pain so that you can get the lesson out of it. But you have to ask him. You have to ask him.
That's good.
Tashia?
I didn't have anything on 27.
Okay. Mika? Mika going to that paper. What you got, Mika?
Mika has my next one is
You can't see this, but she has a dissertation.
with the pencil. Number 2 pencil in cursive. If you are just joining in, we are reading Don't Settle for Safe by Sarah Jakes Roberts. We're doing a review of this excellent, phenomenal must-read. Thank you all for joining in from every avenue that you're joining in from. If you're on our social media pages, and if the page just happens to get stuck, then come on over to listenvision.com. They have the best internet connection ever. I hope I'm not lying. I hope I'm not inaccurate. It's really, really good and clear and won't get stuck. And also, thank you for joining in. We are really enjoying this moment. We're going till 10 o'clock this morning, so get your coffee and listen in while we just continue on. Dee, what you got?
You want me to move past where we've been? Okay.
I'm all the way in the back now.
All right, so I'm on page 29, and I'm going to start with, there may be times when you question whether or not you have the courage to open the doors of your heart that you've been comfortable keeping closed. Remember this, you are strong enough to confront your history. Don't turn away from your brokenness. Remember that you're not doing this alone. God foreknew this moment would come. Every now and then we need a reminder that someone else has defeated a giant we must face. Allow this book to be that reminder, and it is a great reminder. I think so often we are trying to disassociate with our history, that we don't pull the strength of our history. And I thank God that he has given us a proven record. And so often we haven't built enough of our victory records in our history. That's why we resort to our painful places. And when we build enough repertoire of proving his word, we stand in it for the days where our footing feels shallow. I have a memory of a victory that I can pull from that will keep me footed in going forward. And so I just really love that point.
That's good. Marcy?
So mine is the next page. Let me see. So
Learn your patterns. Oh, this took me all the way out.
if you have something early in this, I don't have anything early.
I just think on page 33 that we need to read this. Okay. She was so afraid. That girl I used to be. She thought that she was just one opinion, one lie, one truth away from having the most vulnerable parts of her life exposed. Her fear convinced her to hide away the essence of her soul and even the prayers that would make her whole. She caved into the pressure to be like everyone else and robbed the world of the wealth assigned to her truth. She was a lonely girl, that girl I used to be, but one would never know it because she wore a disguise so popular that it eventually became her worst enemy. Her disguise was the lie she told herself and the truth she was unwilling to face. How many of us have lived the exact same words? I thank her so much for her truth. Although it wasn't easy, it was necessary because her walk, her life is an example that she's living proof that you can live through the nightmare and recover and have one of the best lives that you ever lived. I'm living proof. I say this all the time. My reality is greater than any dream that I ever dreamed. But I have had my nightmare days.
Well, I'll just jump over to the next page, page 34, and it just reinforces. And when you said in your points, Lady Wright, you said, well, some of us, or how many of us have had those moments, and so in the margins, I'm saying things like, that's a good question, or I think you're on to something there. And so on page 34, I'm gonna just skip around. I became so consumed with distancing myself from my mistake that I failed to learn from it. Elder D talked about that. And she said this, hindsight is only 20/20 for those who take a moment to look behind. And it's just like Bishop is talking about to them that have an ear, how the Word of God says that. Look, if you look back, you can see, you can learn. And I'll just jump down. She said,
I'm going to add something real fast. And this is words to live by. Don't have useless pain. Don't have useless pain.
Good lady. Right, the bell. Okay? discover my authentic identity as long as I was pretending.
Yes.
Keep jumping down.
Keep reading.
No, right. There is nothing wrong with not having figured out who you are, but so much can go wrong when you pretend that you have.
Yes, ma'am.
And there's a
Nope, keep going. Yes.
There is a reoccurring theme.
All the way to the end of that paragraph.
There's a reoccurring theme that I have discovered when listening to the stories of people from around the world. We want so badly to convince ourselves that we have it all together that we miss the opportunity to truly come to a place of inner peace. Yeah. It's okay that you don't have all the answers regarding your life, but this is the part
it right
that
here.
killed it. Mm-hmm. Faking joy in the face of misery or peace when you have inner turmoil is dangerous.
Yes.
And I just said, good word, she needs an offering.
Yes.
So I'll stop there.
It becomes an unhealthy pattern.
Yeah.
And the worst thing you can do is start believing your own lie.
That's right now.
That is the worst thing. Oh my goodness. I just screamed her name throughout the book. I wrote her name in all caps. Sarah. Oh, so good.
I said putting up a front damages your future.
Yes, it does. It's like a cancer to your promise.
That's a word.
It is. It's not, but guess what? It's not necessary. You live in bondage in your own mind. I'll use myself for example. How can I love my husband so much publicly and come home and be like, dude, you make me sick. Go sit down somewhere. Why would you live that lie? The effort it takes to live that lie is not worth it. And you damage the psyche of those watching you. Like, who is she today?
Oh, that's good.
And Bishop says, why lie when the truth will
Right.
do? The truth will do, you know? So.
And it's exhausting. I don't know if I got enough energy to keep it
Let me
up.
tell you something at
And
all.
you lead people down a false road of hope. Like, people are watching you aspiring.
Yes, Shami.
And you
ain't even
are just
You're not even
lying.
there.
Like,
Yeah.
it's a crime. You can't expect to lead anybody anywhere except to more destruction if they're following your pattern of lies or whatever.
And
good.
to what end?
And
And to what end?
That's
Like,
good.
if you're living to live again, you're going to be held accountable for that deception. So,
Yes.
to what end? I mean, you lead people, and look, what if they get it and you are lost? God forbid.
Ooh,
Yeah.
let me tell you something.
God forbid.
This is a sidebar for anybody listening that go to church. That's why you don't let anybody just lay hands on you. If I don't know who you are, don't put your hands on me. I'm sorry. We will be literally fighting in the. What you doing? No, this is not about to happen. No.
You're not putting that on me.
No.
You don't want what I got. That's hilarious. Okay, never mind. Moving on.
Tamika, what you got? This is for real. This is serious.
When I think about, the detriment that you offer others when you aren't in a healthy posture, it's just the weeds that are, and again, Mark 4, the thorny ground, that choke out all the good in you that could exist. And so one of the things that in working with children, I'm in education, and I teach second graders on a daily basis proudly. But in working with children, the goal is to see the patterns that are developing and help rechannel them so that they don't become the unhealthy habits as adults. Our brain's primary means of functioning is pattern detection. It's how we embrace safety. And so what I've written, I view the chapter as a whole. And so what I've written is our brain's primary means of processing new information is pattern detection. We are hardwired with these patterns as children from the adults who train us in school, at home, church, or in communities. When we talk about revisiting our patterns, those are the places that we have to revisit in order to recover what may have gotten us off course. We only develop new neural connections by the associations we make with existing networks. Those are our lived experiences. Emotion plus lived experience makes a memory. Literally, as a teacher, I understand what it means to make memory for a child, right? And to see the patterns that exist in the child based on their home life, is so could get to understand their families. And unfortunately, many of us become adults before we even know to look for the patterns. We have to engage our cycles or the patterns to break them or intentionally continue them.
So how would
good
you
or bad.
recommend someone to look? How would you tell someone? You can tell them how that a pattern exists, but how can you instruct them to look for the pattern?
In looking for the pattern, recognize your triggers. What causes, every time I have this emotion, what is in common with memories that I have from the past? Look for the triggers. If you get really happy every time he comes in, why? He reminds me of my dad. Look for what triggers you. It's not just a negative thing. Right. What we do over time, we just become, good or bad. And so learning the patterns, we just become. By 10 years old, a child knows how to get what he or she wants from the adults they interact with.
That's true.
It's automatic. And it will be hardwired for a lifetime. By the time it's hardwired, you can't change it. All you can do is empower a person to choose.
That's good.
Can't take a pattern away.
Yeah.
It's a network. You've seen the Inside Out. It's a kid show. You probably haven't watched it, but it's a great movie that helps us to understand the networks in our life.
That's good.
And so, in order to overcome, you gotta build new networks.
Amen.
Well, you can't build new network. You just have to overlay it with new memories.
Don't everyone listening? Don't you all want your 2-year-old to be in your 2nd-year-old? Where old are they? 2nd grade. To be in Tamika's class. Come on now. Leave Tamika's class.
Shabbat Christian Academy.
Yes. Enroll your child.
We serve students from 2 years old to 8th grade.
Yes, plug. I love it. Yes. How much is the tuition? No. Shalonda, piggyback off of Tamika.
When she was talking about the patterns, and it's true, the things or those memories, once it's learned behavior, it's learned behavior. And she made an excellent point about only being able to empower, to have a choice to change. And the point that I wanted to make about having that choice is on page 43. But before we go to 43, I wanted to piggyback off of what we were talking about earlier. Marcy made a point, and I can't remember exactly what she said, but she speaks to it on page 40, the problem with illusions. We were talking about pretending to be something that you were not, and the detriment that can cause. She says the problem with illusions is that they're constantly confronted by reality. Yes. That right there is just, the sum is all up. Like, you can have an illusion all day, but it doesn't change what you see. It doesn't change who you really, really are. It does not change your truth. But on page 43, to the decisions and choices and empowering them to make a choice.
Wait, go up, back up to page 40.
Let's go to 40. Which
and
one
I like
say?
what she says, sticking to the pattern. My pattern of seeking acceptance and validation was rooted in fear of rejection. Mm-hmm. My fear of rejection was a result of feeling inadequate. Yeah. And you have to realize when fear is the thing that's motivating you. Yeah. If that's a constant pattern in your life, you have to address the fear. Fear is a killer of dreams.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
You have to address it. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. It's good. Okay. So on page 43, like to sum up everything that we were saying right before that little symbol there, she says the patterns in your life will determine the difference between the destruction of your life or the construction of it. It's up to you to choose. And that piggies back off of what Tamika was just talking about. We have to choose whether we will keep building or we stop here and die. You know what I mean? And it's just up to us. We have the power to do that. And Elder D said something about our DNA. If we really believe that we were created in the image of God, that is like amazing. When you can change your mindset to say, my genetic makeup is all the attributes of God. And if that is what you live through or that's what you walk with in your daily life, it will change the way you think about things. It'll change the way you speak about things. It will change the way you respond to things. And it will change the way you handle yourself in different situations. If you really believe I am God walking in the earth right now, you know what I mean? So those things, all of that, it just sums up to that point of you having to choose whether you want to build where you are or stay where you are and never change.
And it again, Tasha, you have the next. Again, It all boils down to a choice. And only you have the power to make that choice. And I'll say to everyone listening, what will you choose today? It's a choice.
I just want to piggyback off of the memorization piece as we sat here and talked. I was reminded of memorization oftentimes, like when you were talking about the school. In my experience with the children, when they have sight words and if you only just drilling in those words for memorization, they will not lean back to their phonemic awareness. And then when she brought out the point about fear, so sometimes you develop a fear that you never knew existed because of your memorization of how things were. This is how you were used to doing it. This is the pattern. So sometimes you won't go outside of this pattern and this memorization out of a fear that you didn't even know existed because of the routine that's in your life.
Your patterns create your fears, and you don't even know it. It creates fears unaware, and you don't even know it because you're just used to this being the way of life. This is my norm. And if you don't ever step outside of your norm, you'll never be as great as you can really be.
That's good.
D? Mm-hmm.
I'd like to know your roots. I'm just flip forward.
Yes.
I'm on page 53.
Good.
And I'm going to start in the middle of the page.
Yes.
And it says, much like predisposed genetic conditions, there are other hereditary soul issues we must discover, cure, and guard against within our lives. We've talked about the environments that have shaped us, but what about the unspoken mindsets that had limited our ability to function healthily? These issues are less talked about than health conditions. They're the mindsets that set the tone for our interpersonal interactions. As our adult relationships grow and deepen, traces of those emotional heart conditions are evident in all of them. It's not until we're confronted with someone who has been raised differently than we were, and we realize that perhaps our families had a way of doing things that differ so drastically from the way someone else was raised that we begin to wonder if it was healthy in the first place. And then I jumped down further on the page where she said, relationship after relationship challenged me to find my voice. Yeah. But there was something standing in the way. And she said, I realize now that I've inherited an emotional pattern. Writing became my outlet and the only way I could truly express myself. And so many times we abandon the very relationships that are necessary for us to find our voice. And it's an invitation to learn your voice. Because when you encounter people that are so drastically different in their mode of operation, in the way they see things, it takes a mature individual to not to abort them. It takes you to take a positioning then, what can I learn from this individual and what did they come to teach me that I have to be open to receiving if I would get out my own way in thinking that my way is the only way or my way is right. Is it right or is it an opportunity to create a bridge?
I want to read the bottom of page 55. I had to be willing to confront the pattern that convinced me trust had limitations. Through a process of discussions and self-examination, it became clear that my heart wanted to believe one thing, but the patterns of my environment made me settle for another. And this was so good because oftentimes we don't address self-sabotaging behavior. And it is so necessary. As much as I desire to have a fully committed man, the insecurities of my patterns kept me from fully embracing him. And I could relate to that when she was talking about being self-sabotaging. I was the type of person where I never fully committed. Because I didn't like the pain that could possibly happen if I fully committed. And so I would allow my heart to go thus far and no further. Or I bow out gracefully. And it wasn't until the Lord did some wonderful things with my heart and my mind that I was able to fully commit it and live such a rewarding life, but it was a process. And I didn't realize that it was a pattern because it was my norm. And I was keeping myself from some of the greatest things in life because I perceived that eventually this right here is going to hurt me. So rather than stay in it and enjoy it, I'll stop this from right here. And I missed out on some of the greatest moments that could have taken place. And God is such a rewarder that he's brung it all back full circle. Time and destiny has met, and I'm walking that out. But you just have to be careful of your self-sabotaging behavior.
That's so good. That's so good.
I just want to say this, and it goes back to making a choice. Like,
all about a choice.
Because it's one thing if you don't know it's a pattern, but when God offers you a new way and you still choose another, that is your choice. So it's about choosing the peace that he offers you, choosing the grace that he offers you, choosing. But again, you have to get to a place where you don't feel like your way is the only way and you know better than God. But so it goes back to choices. Again.
And the worst thing that we can do in our psyche is think that we can predict what somebody else is going to do. You can't do that. And oftentimes we are overthinkers and we sell people short. Sometimes, yes, people oftentimes do exactly what you think they're going to do. But while you're thinking that people will always do what it is that you think they're going to do, there are people out there that God placed in your life to be the complete opposite. And they may not come or look in the way that you think that they should, but they're God sent into your life. And you should oftentimes tap into your spirit of discernment, but enjoy moments. Share of yourself. I will say this. When it comes to church is like a hospital. So share in doses. Don't give all of who you are at one time. I believe that people earn more of who you are over time. You don't just give it away. And so as people earn who you are, I do believe this. When people show you who they are, believe them. And if they have a pattern with other people, you have to just be very wise. But open yourself up for new experiences, to give somebody a chance. Love again. Don't say all men are dogs, and that. Give yourself a chance to love again. Don't live in a self-confined prison.
That's good. That's so good. And I'll just read something on page 56 that she wrote, and it just screams everything that you're talking about. She said, expecting pain in the future takes away your joy in the present. Worrying steals joy that's already yours. And so it's like that self-fulfilling prophecy of sabotage, all of that. If you think this is what's going to happen, if that's your perspective. And she said something before. She said, sometimes our observations are valid. So people did hurt you, and that was right for you to feel that way, but our perspective is limited. And so, we take on the mind of Christ. We choose to see through a different lens, and that gives us greater ability to try again.
And not only that, she said, so when someone does something to you, how about you look at them for who they are, in the sense of they may be broken. They may need healing, and just because they have done it to you, don't take it so personally. Maybe try to find out how you can help them where they are.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That's very good. What I will say to that is sometimes in church, we have to look at patterns too, just like that.
Right.
And when, let's just say you're helping someone because you feel like, when I got saved, I feel like I could save everybody. I can help everybody. Let me tell you something. I went through the streets like the woman. I mean, let me tell you, Jesus is real. Let me tell you about it. But people have to show you that they're willing, that they want it. They can't just drain you of your life and your experience. You don't see any tangible change of growth as a result of you pouring into their life. The Bible said, don't cast your pearls to swine. Yes. Oh my goodness, this is great. We are really enjoying it. We're down to the home stretch. We are having such a wonderful time. This has been such an enlightening moment. And I share life with these ladies, but I learn something new about them every time we sit down to have these moments. And I'm grateful for the connection. If you're just tuning in, this is the Life of Books. It's an online virtual book club. And today we are discussing Don't Settle for Safe by Sarah Jakes Roberts. If you have not gotten this book, it is a must read for 2018. As we're coming down the home stretch, we'll all make one point and then we'll do our close. So Tamika, I'll come to you. Can we go to the second half of the book? What y'all got?
Nobody's gonna do frenemies.
Oh, we are gonna do frenemies. That was very good. Yes, that was very good.
My point is in chapter 9.
What size is this?
Intimacy. We can go skip that far.
Which page is that, Mika?
It's chapter 9 on page 145.
Okay, before that, what page is the frenemies on? 75. I'm just going to read the first part because all of that took me all the way out. Were we best friends because we brought out the best in each other, or were we just the best at making the most of being broken? How could I have guessed that loving me would mean losing you? We made a vow to stick through it all together, but I don't think we ever considered the toll that growth would take on us. You were the person I thought would always be in my corner, no matter how bad things got. But when things became better for me, your voice grew silent, and our connection went from lukewarm to cold. Now all that's left are the words neither of us can say and the emotions we can't ignore. Nothing happened. There was no argument or breaking point, just a fork in the road that forced us to choose. Would we stay bitter together or become better alone? I couldn't wait for your decision, so I began to blaze my own trail. At first, I could see you still standing at the fork in the road, staring at me. I could even hear your voice as you pondered what was best for you. But with each step I took, your image became hazy until all that was left was a silhouette. My mouth didn't like that word. I couldn't connect with you unless I'm willing to go back to who I used to be. I made a vow to God to move to wherever He says I'm supposed to go. Some goodbyes are harder than others. The ones we don't see coming are the ones that sting the most. I don't know if this is goodbye forever, my friend, but it's certainly see you later. That took me out. Let me tell you. What you got, Tasha? Piggyback off of that.
Life circumstances that test your friendships. Sometimes your life experiences will keep you from fitting into the circles closest to you. And that's on page 78. There is a loneliness that comes with being different.
Yes.
If not embraced with the proper mindset, you need to feel connected. Your need to feel connected will make you resent the circumstances that created the isolation in the first place.
That's good.
My time was limited, and getting out of the house created a strategy. Friendships is so much greater than sharing interests. They are anywhere from hundreds to thousands to millions of people who share your hobby, literature, film, music, arts, and crafts. All are all decorations for friendships. The core of friendship is deep understanding of who the person you're engaging is. In the best circumstances, they will be wise counsel. Their opinions will only lead you back to a place of centering with God.
That's good. I always tell Kayla, Kayla is my daughter, and she has this girlfriend, and her way of thinking is right here in this parameter. And I said, baby, if you are balancing the hype of your moment off of the words of her mouth, that's going to lead you to a road of destruction. Always have someone else in your ear that's balanced, because if all you have is this and you don't have anything over here, and you have your emotions, which are very strong, and as we said before, will betray you at a moment's notice, you need to make sure that you have balance in your ear. For me, I can only surround myself right now in my inner circle are people who want to be married, because I don't have a connection. I don't understand people who are unhappily married and choose to stay that way. So for me, while I'm feeding, I'm still a newlywed. I'll be saying that 20 years from now. While I'm still a newlywed, I have to have people around me that will make me want to feed into my covenant all the more. The people that surround you is who you are. What does your circle look like? And when she said to this right here, your friends will lead you to the center. If your friends are not leading you or pushing you to promise or greatness, they're just taking up space in your life.
So good. So good. So good.
Dee, do you have anything on this chapter? Yes, ma'am. Okay.
She gives very different references for definitions of loyalty, and I love them. But what I do like prior to her making the statement on loyalty is she makes the statement of truth that not everyone will be able to make the climb to self-discovery and ultimate fulfillment with you. And when life repositions you, don't be surprised when you begin to notice the strains on relationships. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on page 84. And so what I honed in on is her particular definition on loyalty that registered with me. And she said there's no way to fully determine whether a person is truly interested in investing in you until you've invested in yourself. Losing the comfort of relationships that provide entertainment but no substance requires maturity and discipline. Yes. And then I'll jump down. Lastly, the best type of loyalty comes from a friend who is loyal to who you are. Before we dive into this type of person, it is important to remember that people can be loyal to who you are, but that does not mean they'll be present to watch you come into full maturation. Loyalty is not just about presence. It's about allowing a person to evolve and grow. In its purest state, loyalty is a commitment to protecting another's reputation, evolution, and heart while expecting nothing in return. And can we just get an offering? We are loyal to agendas. And so often when our agenda is no longer being served, we abandon the loyalty. And if I'm truly loyal to you, when your life is evolving and I'm no longer included, I'm still dogmatic about you making it to the end. And so often, if we don't have a front and center posture in that individual's life, and you can see them becoming something that you prayed about and you imagine, and you're like, yes. And I have learned that it is such a rewarding experience to watch people just become what you only fathom in the preview of what God allows you to see in your prayer time. And the greatest loyalty is to stay committed to praying for them even when that journey no longer includes you.
Yes, true.
And to piggyback off of what Elder D just said, about loyalty, if you keep reading, this is the part that took me out here. She says, so often we confuse loyalty with longevity. Loyalty is not a promise to always be around. In fact, loyalty has best proven when two people are not around. It is when one person lives in such a way that nothing will happen on their watch that could hurt you later. Loyalty does not die when a friend is not around. Loyalty should never be contingent on proximity. That right there took me out of here. I just wanted to say that one point.
And look, if you read the rest of it, whether time passes and friendship fades, or a rhythm has been created that allows for comfort, these principles should remain intact regardless.
That's good. That's good.
Did you see the point where she said unswerving in allegiances?
Yes, Lord. We are on our last 5 minutes, ladies. Time has just flew by. It's been so wonderful. Very, very briefly, in 60 seconds, each of you do a wrap up. 60 seconds, starting with you, Mika.
If I have to wrap up the book, I think the type of relationships that we should have with each other are so rare in this day. Understanding what they truly should be. They also take work. They are not easy. And in order to develop healthy relationship with others, we have to develop our relationship with God. This was a book that I honestly feel needed a journal companion.
Yes,
I think that the next step, it exists. The next step for this book would be the journal companion, because after each chapter, I would just have to pause, reflect, process, think about it before I could move on.
That's good.
Those are my thoughts.
If I have to sum up the book, it'll be on page 109. She says these words: "Your life is the roadmap that will help other people avoid detours that delay them from their road to manifesting a destiny greater than those moments that they have aligned them. Don't throw it away because you don't like the marks that you don't like the marks that have been made. Fold it neatly, tuck it away in your heart, and preserve its beauty because someone is going to need evidence that even lost people find their way home." And for me, that is the synopsis of this book, that you are someone's answer. No matter what you go through, no matter what you're faced with, it's those hard times that give you strength, because you don't know how strong you are till you really have to be that strong. So never ever think that your journey or your walk doesn't matter. Every step matters. Every step matters. Everything you had to go through to get to this moment matters, because it's up to us to pull. It's a phrase they say is Sankofa, reach back and pull someone else. It does yourself a disservice to go through everything that you've gone through and not reach back and pull somebody along, because you see what hurt looks like. You know what that looks like. You can recognize that in others. So when you recognize that, take from that the pain that you thought was going to take you maybe out. That right there will bring someone else peace. So that pain that you've experienced is the peace that will get someone else through.
My summary of the book will be on page 187. And she said, "May this book serve as a reminder that even the most broken girls can recover and become powerful women. I'm praying you discover your strength and never let go." And I said, "Thank you, Sarah, for the reminder." And I liken the book to that of a rose, how beautiful it is. And you may have highs and lows in life, and the stem of you may even have thorns in it, but you're still something to behold.
So if I had to sum it up, I would do so on page 170 with 5 words. Freedom was worth the risk. This book overall is about taking the risk to step out of the memories of your past pain, your past hurt, past tragedy, your past insecurities, and becoming all that God needs you to be. So at whatever cost, it's worth the risk.
Amen. Yes, good. My final words will come from page 107. She said, and I'm taking it for myself, "I am evidence that broken crayons still color." Yes. And I'll just say that this book just says, don't let your failure or your past bury you. Amen.
Yes. Good.
I think this book is a great invitation, an invitation to really tapping into the best of who you are and not allowing the first phase of who you are to stop your journey, to just continue on, and she gives you all the tools that's necessary to embark on that journey.
That's good. And I'll conclude with page 184. "The only thing standing in your way right now is you. You're the key that opens every door assigned to you. Do whatever it takes to unleash you." And I'll just reiterate, the only thing that's standing in the way is a choice. And today, I challenge everyone listening, everyone that's given us the last 2 hours of their life, to choose you today. Thank you so very much for joining us. It's been a wonderful time. We'll be back here the last Saturday of every month. On Saturday, February 24th, we'll be reading a book called The Quandary. We'll have the author in the studio with us. We're looking forward to it. Live the best life that you can live. Choose you today. On behalf of the Life of Books, we thank you so very much, and we bless you. Amen.
To share this wealth of information. In these pages, there's so much revelation. These are words that imagine what the purpose. There's power in the life of books. It's